Hi there, Jeff here from the Wetsuit Centre, talking to you today about the Oneill Hyperfreak series of wetsuits for fall 2016. So that's winter 2016 in the UK through to winter 2017. Hyperfreak's been around for a few years now. It's essentially Oneill's kind of entry-level techno butter suit, so the first suit in the series that has the techno butter neoprene running the whole way through the suit. And it's really performance driven, so it's a suit which is kind of stripped down and it's all about flexibility and movement in the water. Okay, so for people that really like a really flexible, comfortable wetsuit, the Hyperfreak is a great choice. I'll run through some of the features that make it that kind of a suit, and what we'll do is we'll compare the Hyperfreak chest zip and the Hyperfreak comp and see the sort of fundamental differences between the two. One being a chest entry suit and the other one being a zip-free suit, so sort of show you both. But essentially, as I say, the Hyperfreak suit, we do it in a 4mm, a 3.2 and a 5.4 suit as well. But across the series, or across the thicknesses, the suit is really built for performance and flexibility. The fundamental or the key selling point about the suit is the quality of neoprene, which is the techno butter neoprene. So as I said before, the thickness of the neoprene, with the winter suit, so for the UK winters, it's 5mm, and what happens is 5mm tends to be in the lower body, so that's the lower part of the seat where you need a bit more thickness and insulation, and then 4mm up around the top of the body, around the shoulders, under the arms, where you need more flexibility. That drops to a 4.3 and then to a 3.2. Typically in the UK or in Europe, Northern Europe, you're going to be looking at a 5.4 in the winter time, which will last you kind of November right the way through till March, April and into May I expect as well, until the water warms up. And then you've got a 4mm suit. Some people wear 4mm in the winter for a quick surf, but most people use the 4mm sort of through spring and autumn, where you want a bit more flexibility but the water's still not too cold. So that's typically where a 4mm will be used, and then obviously further south in Europe and in the Med, a lot of the people will use a 4mm as well. You've got a bit of warm water. But having a look at the 5mm suit here, the 5mm is safe in the lower body. Now, with one of the key sort of selling points with the Hyperfreak is the minimal seams, which again is promoting flexibility. So you get one big piece of 5mm neoprene running through the whole centre of the suit, around the back, right around the bum and bottom of the legs, and through the back and lumbar. One big piece of neoprene to promote flexibility. Less seams means more flexibility, basically. So as you have a little look through the suit, you can see there's no smooth skin panel on there, which again just strips down the suit. You get that one big piece of neoprene, there's no seams to block or restrict movement of the body, and you just get pure flexibility. Downside of that is you might lose a little bit of warmth in that chest panel, with the smooth skin provides a good wind shield. Okay, so there are ups and downs, pros and cons, but as I said before, this is primarily a performance wetsuit, so some of the warmer features of some wetsuits are taken out to promote flex, but the difference shouldn't be huge. As I said before, the unique selling point, or the key selling point about this suit, is the techno butter neoprene. Now, Techno Butter was introduced quite a few years ago, and it's still exclusive to Oneill. And essentially what it is, it's an ultra stretch neoprene, so the actual rubber itself is very similar, if not pretty much the same as the ultra stretch, or the ultra stretch in the lower sort of end of the series of wetsuits, like in the Superfreak. So the rubber itself is the same. What is the difference is basically the amount of cotton used over the top in the lycra jersey on the wetsuit. So when they line the rubber, basically they use the this sort of cotton jersey or the lycra jersey, and what they do, you can see that hexagonal panel there, they've dropped out a huge amount of that material, and that gives more flexibility. It dries quicker, and it's also a lot lighter, so the suit is incredibly light. And that's the real key selling point about the suit. It's very light in the water, quick to dry, and extremely flexible. So as we said before, techno butter neoprene the whole way through, top to bottom, and loads of flexibility in the suit. Any seams that are on the suit are sort of pre-bent to make sure they don't restrict any movement in the body. Okay, so everything's kind of thought about, really. Moving further down on the suit, you've got Duraflex knee pads, which is a standard material most manufacturers use now, and it's just a very hard wearing material, so make sure it doesn't wear through on your knees. So if you're using your knees to duck dive, or if you're getting up on your knees, then they won't wear through, where previously they used to. You can have a little look on the bottom of the cuff there, see how thick that is. With Oneill, it's weird, they're all sort of supposed to be 5mm wetsuits across the manufacturers, but if you actually measure them, there is quite a difference. I think Oneill suits are built for Californian winters, so sometimes they're not as thick as, say, Excel, Ripco and Seaskins do a really thick 5mm. which is great for UK waters where people really feel the cold. But if you don't feel the cold as much and you need a bit of a lighter suit, then Oneill are much better. They're much more. That's where you can really feel the flexibility, and it's quite noticeable. But it comes down to preference at the end of the day. But great suits. You've got the stitching is glued and blind stitched, obviously, just to make sure I know what comes through the seams. And that's just those of you who aren't familiar with glued and blind stitching. Basically, they stitch on the outside of the suit halfway through, and then the inside they then glue it shut to make sure no water comes in through the seams. And then on the critical areas like the cuffs, the ankle cuffs and around the chest where seams join, they just tape it to reinforce it. So the suit should last a long time. So 100% Techno Butter neoprene. The chest entry system has like a dual roll neck collar around the neck, and basically that is two pieces of neoprene which move independently with a smooth skin interior that allows that smooth skin to stick to your neck. The outside piece rolls independently and it stops any rash or rub. It also creates a better seal around the neck which stops any flush throughs. So that's one of the primary benefits of the chest entry wetsuits and the zip-free suit. If you're getting through the top of the suit, then you don't have a need for a back zip, which again promotes flexibility because you don't have a zip restricting you. But also because you've got an unbroken seam around your collar, which is nice and tight, that should stop as many flush throughs coming through the wetsuit. So the chest entry suits are gaining popularity because they are good at keeping out the water. Downside obviously is they are harder to get in and out of, which is even more so the case with the zip-free suits, because it's just purely the amount that you can open up the neck piece and get in and out. So having a look at between the two suits, the chest entry and the zip-free. Obviously with the chest entry, most of you are probably familiar with this. It's just a simple system where the actual chest entry piece is sewn over the inside of the wetsuit. So you get this zip across the chest, horizontal zip, which is buttoned down with this little toggle. It goes from inside to out, so you don't have to fiddle around with the zip and get it all sort of zipped up. Basically, it's nice and easy. Just zip it out, clip it down. The panel goes up and over the head, okay, like that. And then it reveals the actual inside of the suit. So this part of the suit, this chest entry, is actually sewn over the top, which means that any water comes in through the collar, instead of going into the suit, is met with this piece of neoprene, which is actually the wetsuit itself, and then guided out through the chest entry system here, or through the drain hole at the back, or you've also got a drain hole further down on the sleeve, I believe, which just lets water out of the chest entry system. So that goes up and over the head. You actually get in through this piece here, and that is overlapping, so it allows you to pull it nice and wide. The actual key with these is to really sort of pull the suit inside out, roll it down to the waist, which will allow you to get in and out easier. Okay, that goes back over the head, and then you zip across the chest. That is the chest entry suit. Then obviously with the zip free, it's a very similar process, but without the zip. So it does mean that you have to pull the suit and stretch it a little bit more, but the bonus is that you don't have that zip across your chest. So when you're arching your back on your board, or when you're just doing anything where you've got a lot of dynamic movement front to back, then you don't have that restriction of the chest zip across the suit. It does feel nice when you're arching your back surfing and paddling, or when you're lying on your board. You do notice the difference. It does feel good not to have a zip. But obviously the downside is, because you can't zip that back, you are literally pulling it back and it stays attached at the front here. So if you use the same technique of rolling the suit down to the waist, getting it on shouldn't be too much of a difference. I think it's getting out of the suit where some people find it a little bit more difficult, because you're having to sort of pull it up and they get their elbows stuck a lot of the time, especially bigger chaps who are less flexible can find this a bit of a struggle. But essentially that's the difference. But once you get used to it, it's absolutely fine, and it works in a very similar way. Basically, that goes up and over the top, like that, and then you've got to get in through here. It looks like a bit of a mess, the way that I'm doing it, basically. But once you get to this stage, as I say before, you've got to get in here, which looks kind of intimidating, but once you roll it inside out, down to the waist, it makes it a lot easier. So you roll that down to the waist, pull it on like a pair of trousers, and up and over your body. But I'm not going to lie, that is definitely trickier to get in and out of than the chest entry, and a lot trickier than the back zip sort of style of wetsuits. But though, for those who want complete freedom of movement, the zip-free option is really good. There is another fundamental difference between the comp suit, which is the zip-free suit, and the chest entry suit, and it's the finish on the wetsuit. what I do, shove the hanger back in here. All that purple material you saw inside is the Techno Butter neoprene, that's the lining, the Techno Butter 2 specifically. And that is just basically the difference between the 1 and the 2 is essentially just the lining. It doesn't trap as much sand inside the suit, and that's really fundamentally the only real difference. There might be a bit more flexibility there as well, but it's just the Velcro doesn't stick as much to the inside of the suit either. So that's some of the sort of advances between Techno Butter 1 and 2, but in terms of what you actually feel, there's not a lot of difference. So yeah, you've got the comp suit. So the other fundamental difference, if I grab both suits, is the finish on the suit. Now, the comp, you might notice, I don't know if it picks up on camera very well, but there's like a sheen to the comp. It's like a very smooth, sort of shiny finish on the suit. You do get that on the normal Hyperfreak, but it's on the inside only, and that makes it better to sort of slide on, but it also makes it nice and comfy against your skin. What they've done with the comp is they've kept that on the outside of the suit as well. So aesthetically, the suit feels a lot sort of slipperier and slidier and softer, and it's got the sheen on it. And I think it's basically down to how they actually treat the Lycra jersey. It's like in terms of a finishing process. What they've done is they've skipped a step with the comp to keep that sheen on the outside as well as the inside. Fundamentally what that means, it's just an aesthetic thing, it's just a soft touch sort of thing. But having spoken to some of the guys at Oneill, when they TOG test the wetsuit material itself, which is essentially testing how much heat is transferred through the rubber, in terms of performance, the actual sheen helped insulate the suit a little bit more, which is interesting. So I don't think that's something that's sort of advertised, but apparently when they just were giving it a try, some of the warmest neoprene, or the neoprene that maintained the most heat, was the stuff where they left the sheen on both sides. So it might actually make a difference. So that's fundamentally the two differences between the suit. Is obviously the chest entry system, or the entry system, and the material itself. Those are the noticeable differences between the suit. Everything else is pretty much the same, which is the Techno Butter 2 neoprene the whole way through, top to bottom, minimal panelling, strategically placed seams, and basically a very flexible, high-performance wetsuit that's built for people who don't like wearing wetsuits but need a winter wetsuit, obviously. So if that is your cup of tea, if you're probably someone that would prefer to have flexibility over a heavier, warmer suit, then the Hyperfreak is a really, really good option this winter.